Do what thou will be the whole piece of law.
Do you know what a fractal is? A fractal is an image that no matter how long you zoom in on it, there will always be more. It's an image that goes on forever, infinitely repeating. And people are like that. People are like fractals in and of themselves, mainly because people are not bound by the laws of time or depth. If you reach your hand into a person, you can always sink your hand deeper and find more that you hadn't assumed would be there. Now, on, I guess, a series that I've been producing now, I've been reaching my arm into Francis Deck. And this video is not about Francis Deck, but I always feel disingenuous when I devote so much attention to one person, and then I can only devote 20 to 40 minutes on another. I've given Francis Deck a sum total of, 2.5 hours now of dedicated content, and I can only give Artaud, a man who has contributed so much to the modern art scene, around 45 minutes. I think that's unfair. I think that's grossly unfair. I'm bound by interest, I suppose. Not that anyone watches my stuff anyway, but if they did, they would be surprised at what they found. Because I talked to my friends about this project. I call my channel a project now, I guess. And they say, well, you should cover someone more well-known. And I might do one on David Koresh or someone else who's gotten into a standoff with the US government. I really do want to make a video on, all the twisting, turning lunacy that is fascist movements in the United States. But I'm getting off topic. Who am I beating around the bush so much for? Well, who I want to talk about is someone, again, who has a lot of influence in the modern day, but in kind of a roundabout way. He was a man born in Meuse, which is now a part of Württemberg in Germany. He's a hop and a skip away from being Swiss, but he's German. And when I say his name, a few words might pop to mind. And that's because his name is actually the progenitor of these words. On that day in Württemberg was born Franz Anton Mesmer. Now, you may be thinking of words like mesmerized, and that is from him. He had a profound impact on medicine, he had a profound impact on religion, and he had a profound impact on the modern hypnotist movement. Now, I know some people with certain religious faiths consider animal magnetism a taboo topic. So if you don't want to interact with this video, because we are going to talk about animal magnetism, Mesmer is one of the main pushers forward of animal magnetism, mainly into its grave, but I mean, it still counts. If you have taboo feelings about animal magnetism, don't feel guilty about just going somewhere else or watching something different. Here, I'll even put something in the card that doesn't involve animal magnetism. You know what? How about that Artaud video? That Artaud video did pretty well. Go watch that one. It's about another crazy artist. But anyway, enough self-promotion. Who is Franz Mesmer? Now, I first read about him in the 48 Laws of Power. He is mentioned in it mainly for his ability to influence people. But how did he start off? Everyone's got to get their start somewhere. So, he was born in Württemberg, and he studied abroad in Vienna, Austria. He went for medicine, and he also had a pronounced interest in astronomy, mainly because a lot of his views on astronomy led back to magnets, which would also be another big thing, it's like, magnets, how do they work? Well, Mesmer didn't know, but he liked to attribute a lot of things that took place in the world to magnets. Because he was going for medicine, he also thought the planets influenced the human body. So here's where we kind of have to get into the weeds a little bit on medicine in the 17 to 1800s. Now, medicine at this point was more of an evolution off the four humors theory. You remember the four humors, that thing you learned about when you were learning about the Black Plague, and it involved all this bloodletting and other stuff to drain humors and balance humor levels, but sometimes it would just kill them, like use of leeches, something along those lines. Now, Mesmer had a bit more of a nuanced take on the subject. His more nuanced take was that the planets, just as they influence the tides on the Earth, influence these different levels of fluid in your body. This is where, sickness comes in because, you unbalance these four levels, the tides mix up or go in different directions that they're not supposed to. And when you read his medical writing, he's, so close to what is actually going on because he'll describe how these forces of the elements. He calls them like air, earth, fire, and water, like everyone does when they're mentioning the elements. How they pump through the body into different places, and sometimes they get mixed up and they go in different directions, and that's why sicknesses happen. But his main claim to fame was animal magnetism. When he was about 30 to 40 years old, he managed to produce sources call it an artificial tide. It's hard to explain because you don't have the 18th century mindset. It's like what we would call today like psychic things or telekinesis. How there was this invisible force or like this invisible fluid that Mesmer had, that he could change the tides in your body of these different elements that are coursing through you. And this patient had hysteria, and he had her swallow some solution that contained iron and other magnetic elements, and he like attached magnets to her and all this stuff. And I think the creepier thing is she could feel this magnetic substance moving around, almost like blood. She felt it move around, and I don't know if it had a calming feeling. The patient doesn't really describe it. She just describes like, oh, I felt like a correction, like iron atoms in a magnetic field. Kind of, she was realigned to her normal state of being. She was realigned to a place where, she could be a functional human being again. But Mesmer didn't accept this for what it was. He didn't say, well, obviously the magnets did this. He thought it was more of this invisible fluid that he possessed, or this force that only he could control, which is where he coined the term animal magnetism. Now, don't think that magnets are going to leave this story, because Mesmer will, I don't want to say give up on magnets, but he'll use them in more of a limited capacity, because magnets in this time were, I don't want to say a common medical treatment, but like a niche medical treatment. Think of it like physical therapy. It's not something that you go to for everything, but it's definitely like a hyper-specialized thing that if you have a problem that requires magnets, you should go use magnets, which is crazy to think. Like, I love history because it's so much of this people actually believe this type of stuff. It's great. Oh, also, I should have mentioned this back in his previous life portion, but this guy knew Haydn and Mozart, two of the most famous composers to ever exist in the classical music scene. He just knew those guys. It's so weird reading about historical figures and like finding out they existed in the exact same time. Like how Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr. were born in the same year, but you think of them as like in two completely different time periods. It's like that. Looking back in history and seeing that two people that you know a lot about knew each other is crazy to me. But anyway, back to the magnets and animal magnetism. So he gave a lot of talks in Vienna because he stuck around in Vienna. He started out like, oh, I'm going to go there for school, but he kind of settled down there, mainly probably because he wanted to get away from his parents, or just Germany as a whole, because Germany at this time was, a big mess, and Austria was kind of the hegemon of the German states. So it's a place you should be if you want to be involved in high society. But he gave a lot of talks to things like the Munich Academy of Sciences. He also gave talks later in life to the Royal Academy of Sciences or the Royal Society of Medicine later on, but I'm getting ahead of myself. He gave his testimony about this artificial tide, and mainly I'm going to focus on the Munich Academy of Sciences talk. It was on, I believe, like an exorcism or something that a priest did. And he's like, yes, I exorcised this demon from this guy. I forget the exact number, but he's like 12, I think. 12 demons from this guy. And it was through my faith in God and the church that I managed to do all these things. And Mesmer effectively gives a counter talk about, no, it's not religion, it's not your faith, it is this high amount of animal magnetism that you possess. And he this goes over so well for Mesmer that he effectively gets this guy disbarred as an exorcist, and he dies in shame. It's like a horrible thing, because think about this is during post-Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was a big movement about science and rationality. All these things that you see, the annoying people with the neckbeards and the fedoras talk about today, the supremacy of science, the supremacy of reason. But Mesmer challenged that. I guess Mesmer is the fedora-tipping atheist in this story, but he gets this exorcist disbarred. It's horrible. Well, for the exorcist, I guess. This is a great win for Mesmer. And this gets him a lot more attention. And he starts doing minor cures, things that would probably go away on their own, that we now know, things like the cold, or, hysteria was one of his favorite ones, because hysteria is a purely psychological thing. As we're going to talk about later, purely psychological diseases are really easy for Mesmer to deal with, mainly because he's unconsciously harnessing what we now know as hypnotism. But we'll talk about that later. But he eventually gets to something that's too much for him. He goes to cure this composer. Her name is Maria Padrius, and she is also a friend of Haydn and Mozart. So I couldn't find any official confirmation, but I like to headcanon that Mozart and Haydn are like, we love working with this person. It would mean a lot to us if you went and cured her blindness, because it was really tragic. It was like nothing she could do. Really, really sad story. But Mesmer treats her for an extended amount of time. It's like half a year of time she's in Mesmer's care, and Mesmer, using these pre-established methods that he's been laboring under, is able to improve on her blindness. Now, this isn't like a she regains her sight type of miracle situation. This is more of like I could only see barely anything before, and now I can see almost barely anything. And it stops for a kind of comedic reason, because some stories say it's, she doesn't want the scandal of working with Mesmer because he's kind of falling out of favor in Vienna at this point. It's looking like he's going to have to leave town, but also there's like the other side that says, I don't want to lose my disability pension. I don't want to lose my payments, so leave. I'd rather be blind and get paid so I can continue to write my music and play piano. But you're gonna have to leave because it's working too well. So Mesmer is effectively ousted from Vienna because she makes a big stink about it. It's like celebrity gossip, right? You can't avoid celebrity gossip, and back in those days, celebrity gossip would get you ousted from town. Well, I mean, celebrity gossip nowadays gets you ousted from Twitter, but I mean, who's counting, right? So he moves to Paris, and this is where I know a lot more about Mesmer. This is where it's not going to be from, a couple sources I found. This is like my agglomerated knowledge on Mesmer. Because when I originally went into Mesmer as a person, I thought he was French. I thought this was going to be another I cover a French guy, but no, he's apparently German, and he had some little forays beforehand. But this is, like I mentioned before, he gives the talks to, the Royal Academy of Sciences or the Royal Society of Medicine, and he basically only gets one guy there to support him, and he's not really that important. But he also writes his memoir. This is like the theater in his double for people who actually like Mesmer. It is called Mémoire sur découverture du magnétisme animal, which is his 27 propositions of animal magnetism. This is known as like a scourge to some people. This is known as a blessing to some people. This is like the gospel to some people. But, I have a Bachelor of Science, not to brag. I got it in environmental because I hate making money. But, reading through some of these, even just glancing through and looking at some of them, like I'm going to read some at random. Proposition 1. There exists a mutual influence between the heavenly bodies, the earth, and the animate bodies. Well, even that is still kind of questionable because, the universe is made up of 2 points. And there's some philosophy that says, something on one side of the universe influences something on the other side, and we're just bound to a planet that's, on the other complete opposite side of the universe. But we live on a planet that rotates around the sun. I don't even know if that's controversial to say. I threw Flat Earth under the bus. I don't know if I'm gonna get a hit team after me. What about another one? It is communicated, propagated, and intensified by sound. If we're going at this from he's starting on hypnosis angle, he's kind of right. You want to have people focus in on like a droning noise or, some consistency of noise. But still, like he's trying to propagate this as like real science that you'd use in a hospital. Like this is not hospital tier science. Well, what about another one? The system will furnish fresh explanations as to the nature of fire and light, as well as the theory of attraction, ebb and flow, the magnet, and electricity. That's proposition 21. No. I just don't think that's correct. And what about the last one? Proposition 27. In conclusion, this doctrine will enable the physician to determine the state of each individual's health and safeguard him from the maladies which he might otherwise be subject. The art of healing will thus reach its final stage of perfection. He wants to use this in a hospital. He wants to effectively mesmerize people in a hospital. Now, I've been kind of general about what this mesmerizing process is, and I want to go into more depth with it because this process, you'll begin to see a lot of extra similarities, I suppose, with modern hypnotism. So I think it's best if I paint a picture. I want you to close your eyes and imagine something. Imagine you walk into a room. It's all aromatic. You have nice incense. It's a very reflective, mirrored room. It has an open skylight. The moon, or the sun, depending on the type of day, but he usually did this at night, will shine down into the room. In the center of the room, below the skylight, usually below the moon, will be a brazier, or like a bowl, made of glass filled with water. This bowl then has ropes connected to it, which then fan out to all the participants, which will be sat in a circle around the bowl. Now, they're encouraged to place these in very comfortable places. Not anything explicit, just somewhere where the rope has contact with their skin and is comfortable. Very pleasureful, monotonous tones are then played, just to please your ears as well as your nose. You sit down, you can feel this rope lightly draped over you to connect you to the water, which connects you to the moon. It's a connection to the moon's tide, effectively, trying to recalibrate your body to what the moon's tide is. You can feel the ebb and flow of the tide through the rope, through the water. It's nice, aromatic, incense smell in the room, bathed in moonlight. Moonlight reflected off the water in the center of the room, off of all of the mirrors. And as Mesmer and his helpers enter the room, now this is an entire event in and of itself, because Mesmer usually caters to one sex at a time. Like, he'll do a section with all men, or he'll do a section with all women, but he usually tends to women. That is usually who's interested in this. So when Mesmer and his group enter, Mesmer himself is dressed in a very appealing style of dress for the time. It's like the nice light blue poofy jacket. You know, he's got his wig on, he's dressed to the nines in the 1800s style. And he enters with usually a group of like muscular, appealing men dressed very scantily, showing nothing explicit, but it's supposed to be appealing to whatever sex he's serving at the time. If he's serving men, this will be women. And the music that accompanies this will transfer to a less monotonous, more wave-like tone, as these participants will bring in magnets, and Mesmer himself will chant, or he will do something that awakens this invisible liquid or force that permeates the room, because all of this is supposed to fill the room up with this invisible liquid or this force that he's about to manipulate without touching anyone. And this will go on for however long it takes. He effectively does not establish time limits for these things. And what you can expect if you're sitting in that chair is that Mesmer will be talking the whole time, the moonlight will be shining down on you, you'll be able to feel the effect of these magnets around you. He'll talk about how everything is influencing you, how this is good for you, and when the ritual eventually ends, we'll exit the room and maybe play some glass harmonica. That's at the end of his group procedures, he used to give a little musical performance. But if this were a one-on-one, it would be a lot more common. Usually after the group performances, he just wanted to get out of there. But if you're doing this one-on-one, he would be a lot more intimate with the process, not explicitly, but he would take your hands into his hands and press his thumbs and knead them around as he guided you through the manipulation of this liquid to correct your problems. You can open your eyes again. Scene's over. But I want to try something. I want to give you a little dose of the modern take on animal magnetism, I suppose. I'm a little bit of a hypnotist. I went to a Hypnotism 101 class in that con I went to last week. So I'm basically an expert. No, but seriously, I am experienced. And for this exercise, if you want to skip it, go to this timestamp. But otherwise, I want to try something with you, because I don't want you to think Mesmer's a quack. Mesmer, for his time, is effectively taking what he has and working with it. He's trying to peddle it as science, but now we know of it more as hypnotism. It's not something that is explicitly stated as much as it is implicitly stated to the subconscious that will always answer. So I want to give you a little dose of what it might be working with Mesmer, just in like a little jokey way. You can always opt out of it. Like I said, timestamps here, but I just want to try. Play along. if you want to stick around. That's the best advice I can give you. Also, I'd sit down if I were you. You're in good hands, don't worry. Sit down, place your hands gently interlaced and then tightly interlaced in front of you. Now, I want you to close your eyes and focus on a point that's behind your eyes, back in the center of your head. And as you focus on this point, I want you to imagine the room that I just described. That room with all its calm sounds, all those nice smells, the moonlight draping in. I want you to imagine that you are in this room and that I'm your Mesmer, that I have this invisible force that can manipulate you to make you feel better. I don't want anything ill for you. I want something that'll make you feel better. I want you to feel good. And when you look into that bowl of water in the center of the room, you can see how deep it actually goes. Deeper and deeper. It practically goes on forever. It reflects back to the moon, and the moon has infinite, deep power. And as you experience this, you feel happy. You know you're in good hands. It's calming. And when I ask you to subscribe, you will subscribe. Please subscribe. Please leave a comment. Please leave a like. Now, as you're still breathing in and out, I want you to look up to the moon. Look up. And as you look up, you can feel yourself float. Float upwards. Upwards and upwards. Feeling great. Feeling light. And when I say awake, you shall awake. Awake. Now, I know it was a little bit cheesy. I know it was a little bit tacky. But Mesmer did use it in this exact same way. Mesmer used this to get a lot out of his patients that he normally wouldn't have. Mainly because a part that I left out was that Mesmer would have one of his assistants walk around with a donation bucket. Now, this is odd. You normally get the paying part before or after your medical procedure. And that was still the case. He would just ask for other donations inside of his rituals, which is completely antithetical to what good hypnotism is in the modern day. But since I gave you that little taste, I want to transfer to what hypnotism is in the modern day. You may have been to like a hypnotism course. You may have been to, a show where people are lined up on stage. You might have seen a street hypnotist, someone who can just do it on the street. But all of these people have something in common. All of these people are using what Mesmer would call the Oriental hypothesis, which is Mesmer desperately relied on physical connection for his animal magnetism to work. And this isn't true. People can hypnotize you with or without physical contact. And without physical contact is what Mesmer called the Oriental hypothesis. It was pioneered by someone else, but I can't remember their name right now. I'll put it on screen. But modern hypnotism understands what Mesmer was doing on a more fundamental level. You have three, I guess I'm going to go into the how-to hypnotism, but it's very basic. If this sounds interesting to you, please look more into it. It is genuinely fun. It can help you out. I'm not going to say any of this will help you, but I'm saying if you want to look into it, it's certainly cool. Try it on your friends. It's a cool party trick. I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. Don't let me stop you. Mesmer didn't have like a formally written dialogue on how any of these worked, but we can now place what Mesmer did into the different stages of hypnotism. Because first you want to start out with the relaxation and affirmations. You want to assure people that they're in good hands. This was because Mesmer was well respected. If you cultivate a respect, or, you say you're in good hands, all of these affirmations that you're safe with this person, that is the first part. It's easier to get people to play along if they trust you. Second, when you walk into that room, all those nice smells, the moonlight, the mirrors, the rope with the contact, the water, all of this is meant to sell you on relaxation. You want to be relaxed. Relaxation is key. It's a lot easier to talk to someone subconscious when they're relaxed. Thirdly, when Mesmer and all of the others come in, that is what hypnotists call the induction. Induction is bringing people into like a deeper hypnotic state, where Mesmer, by giving all of these speeches or, having the people around with the magnets, it's getting them to relax deeper because they believe these magnets will relax them deeper. They've already kind of subscribed to Mesmer's philosophy of animal magnetism, and they're here to experience it. They already kind of believe in the process, which is a big boon to Mesmer because Mesmer will always usher people deeper with these things. People expect magnets to relax you, so he will use magnets. People expect the moon to have relaxing properties because it corrects the tides of the humors in their body, so Mesmer uses the moon. People you're attracted to are really calming. You know, you feel you're in good hands if you're with an attractive person, so that's why Mesmer uses all these attractive people and why he dresses up in his best clothes, because it's another thing to get people to relax, that he doesn't want them to feel threatened. And then does his hypnotic cure, I guess, quote unquote, and after that, he, asks for donations because he obviously just needs more money because all these people are super rich. They're paying out the wazoo to get into Mesmer's sessions to begin with, and then, they also donate money too. This guy's not like living on the street. He's not super poor. I mean, he can afford this entire setup to hire people to come out and do all of this with him. So, I mean, he's obviously not struggling for money. But then you have the come down bit with the music, and the music is meant to bring them back to the conscious state. It's all the steps that modern hypnotists would understand as the process, but Mesmer was using it unconsciously. Now, what does modern hypnotism mean for the cultural zeitgeist? There are a lot of theories about how to do hypnotism. I'll point you towards a book called Reality is Plastic. That is probably one of the best if you're just interested. Like a passing fad, I suppose. If you just want to go buy a copy of Reality is Plastic. That's the main book that I started reading after I went to that one hypnotism course at the con, so I'm basically an expert. Turns out I had been doing it accidentally for 3 years because someone had manipulated me into doing it, but I mean, that's a whole nother story that I'll save for some time down the line when I inevitably talk about someone who cares about animal magnetism more than I do, or someone cares enough to ask. But I had a lot of experience, I just didn't know what I was doing. But what does modern hypnotism mean? It's effectively just talking to someone's subconscious with the ability to say no impaired. Because if you've ever been hypnotized yourself, if you had it done well, you shouldn't be able to recognize that you were hypnotized. Mainly because hypnotism doesn't feel like anything. It's like if you're of age, if you've been drunk, it's like that. It's like someone giving you suggestions while you're drunk. It's someone talking to your subconscious, bypassing the conscious mind and giving suggestions to your subconscious. You wouldn't do things you wouldn't do anyway. Like, a lot of good hypnotists will get people to practice by giving them ridiculous requests and having them say no. It's not like in fictional depictions where you just see people go off the rails and do things they would never normally do. But it is a suggestion to do something that you would normally do, or is within the realm of plausibility for you to do, without you having the time to think about it, or even the stress to think about it. That's why relaxation is so important. And I'm not going to give a definition for hypnotism, because there's so many of them, and I don't think I'd do it justice. But this is the legacy of Mesmer. When people say they're mesmerized by something, this is what they mean. They're effectively hypnotized to some degree. Mesmer used the tools of his time to pioneer what is obviously not real as a medical theory. I don't think I have to say that. Animal magnetism is not real, but hypnotism debatably is. So if you just want to say animal magnetism is hypnotism, even though they have a lot of other weird differences, hypnotism should never be used as hard science, I can fix your heart disease with animal magnetism. But I think hypnotherapy has a lot of benefits to it, because it helps people solve problems that they couldn't otherwise solve. If you're a person who finds themselves getting lost in labyrinths of thought, draining themselves in the quagmire of their own mind, I'd try hypnotherapy. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying I've ever done it, but I would try it. It might be for you, mainly because your subconscious understands that it has to change, but your conscious mind is fighting that change. That's Mesmer's legacy. In all, it's soft science at best. Animal magnetism hypnosis will never be hard science. It can't do a double bypass for your heart, but it can help you fix your mental problems. Or maybe, plausibly. That's the whole thing, I guess. That's why I have so many problems with it. It's like therapy, right? You need the right person everything has to align. But I think Mesmer did a lot of good. Not for pushing it as hard science, not for pushing the four humors theory, not saying that animal magnetism is just him manipulating the, four humors into you not being sick anymore. He pioneered hypnotism. And I think hypnotism is a good hobby. Even it's a good show. If you don't believe in it, just watching people be hypnotized and walking around like dogs on stage. I had a hypnotist who did that at my high school once. But that's the benefit of Mesmer. That's what I think Mesmer's positive impact to the world is. And overall, I don't think he was crazy. I just think he was ahead of his time.